So Dirk, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go into leadership, can you tell us a little bit more about your own background? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Bronkhorstspruit, which is about 60 kilometers east of Pretoria. My father was a statesperson, working in the Staatsdienst. And so my mother also was a teacher, and we had pretty humble beginnings. There wasn't really money to go and study. We had to go and do our own thing. Back then, if there weren't money to study, you're going to the police or you're going to become a teacher or something like that. And those were our prospects that we started out with.
So was it two brothers?
Yes, two brothers, yeah.
The two of you.
Already back then, my brother was already, Fani was already in Standard 8, already sold his first vehicle, which was a motorbike that wasn't running. My father taught us to fix up the vehicles ourselves, and for that reason we were driving bangers all the time.
Right.
We often had to tow each other back to home from wherever the cars were, and my father had the habit of towing at speed, far beyond the speed limit.
Okay.
So that is something I think is highly unusual and also highly illegal.
Right.
But that's what he did. He towed at speed. He wanted to get it over with,
Okay.
Yeah, so
Dirk, as you grew up, what was your dream career?
at that stage, earlier in high school, I thought I was going to become a mechanical engineer because I wanted to design stuff. But then I got only 13% for math at the end of matric, 13%. So obviously you couldn't get university exemption, and that was a dream that would never see the light. And then I thought, no, maybe I should do industrial design, which is more of an arty sort of job. Then I joined the army, out of matric into the army. I was in the first group that did only 1 year of army, and from there, because of our limited prospects, we joined. Well, I started to get into sales. Tried selling vacuum cleaners. Trying to sell anything, and eventually I was selling paving. And later on, a family member of mine said to me, "Dirk, you got to study. You've got the head. You've got the mind. You're hungry for knowledge. You must study. We will pay for you. Come and stay in our house. We will pay for your studies." And I said to them, "What? You didn't see my matric end results, and I don't have university exemption." They said, "There's nothing in life that cannot be fixed if you're willing to try hard enough and long enough." And to cut a long story short, within 3 months, I was studying at the technical college for 3 months, maths, and I got 65% N3 and N4, which was enough to get university exemption at that stage. So I got university exemption, and I enrolled for the marketing degree, which I was doing part-time. And it took me 7 years all in all, and eventually I got my degree. So, during that time I was working out from a garage where we were doing, my cousin, he was paying for my studies, and we were making this product that fits on the car's roof, a wheelchair hoist, and I did that for 4 years. And well, eventually, long story short, I finished the degree, got a little job at a place called Form Steel, where I worked for a year or two or so, and then my brother invited me into his business of buying and selling cars. He left for the UK, and I stayed behind and took the business further. The market dynamic changed completely during those 2 years, and we had to be very, very resourceful and innovative, and that's where the premises for We Buy Cars got born, in that desperation for where are we going to source cars to buy in order to sell for a profit, because it dried up. We were used to buying it out of the papers where private people advertise it. It dried up because of the economy. There were more cars advertised than ever before, but almost all of them were traders and people looking to make a profit, all of them. You must remember that was shortly after 94. And I had to find a new way of sourcing stock, and that's what we did. So I had to start advertising for people who need to sell a car. Let me come to you and buy your car quickly. We'll make it easy for you. You don't have to worry about nothing. We do everything for you, and it worked. It worked
so what
eventually.
you say, Dirk, was that the idea that really turned the business around?
Yeah, I would say so. If we didn't change gears at that stage, if we weren't looking for new ways of doing things, we would have been forced to do something else.
And tell us, Dirk, who inspired you in your early days?
My father, because my father is someone who believes in following your own path and not to listen to. He used to say, "Speak your mind," and then he would softly say, "And pay the consequences." But that's just his sense of humor. My father taught us to think for yourself and not to follow the crowd. So we are used to thinking outside of the box. We're used to thinking for ourselves. To us, that's second nature. So, yeah, we just had to learn to apply that to the environment around us. But my cousin that I mentioned, Louis Boet is my cousin that I mentioned, if it weren't for his goodwill, if it weren't for his vision for me, if he didn't see my talent, if he didn't see, here's a young man with no prospects, he's got an eager young mind that's hungry for knowledge and hungry for trying stuff, if he didn't come to me and say, "Listen, I want to help you, we're going to do it this way,"
you wouldn't be here.
Yeah, then I wouldn't be here. So Nassim Taleb wrote a book called, what's the name of the book? It's failing me now to remember the name of the book. Fooled by Randomness, that's the book's name. Fooled by Randomness. The basic premises of the book is that the majority of success that you see out there is random. For every successful guy out there, there's 99 other equally successful people who failed, who didn't make it. Okay, it's true. It's not ultimately true because it is ultimately true at the same stage. But if you take 100 people that are really, really resourceful and hardworking, entrepreneurs, 100 of them, only 10 of them are going to really go to the top. It's not that there's anything wrong with the other 90%, but the fact of the matter is there's no success recipe for life. You cannot follow a certain recipe and then you can't do, the opposite is you can't say, you failed because you didn't follow the right recipe. There isn't a recipe. There is still a confluence of circumstances. Things can turn out well for you, or you may hit a bad patch at the wrong time, and then everything falls apart.
So Dirk, looking back over your career, would you say there was a major turning point where things could have gone different, and you had a choice to make, a very important choice?
There's a couple of them, obviously, a couple, not just one, a couple. Very early on, there was one where we really, really almost didn't make it. If that materialized that we didn't make it, then we were through. Then there would not have been a We Buy Cars today, and it was very, 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 very close where that happened. And then subsequently there were other opportunities still where choices needed to be made, where me and my brother had substantial character clashes, obviously, and one of us had to make the decision to follow the other. So someone had to allow someone else to lead. So I decided to follow my brother's lead and allow him to take the lead, which he did, obviously. If we didn't do that, we would not have had the success that we had today. So there's a lot to be said for personalities, personal differences, because the guy who's the analytical, task-oriented person that's really good at not procrastinating and outcome-based. A lack of words. He's not the same guy that's got all all the creative ideas. The guy that's got all the creative ideas might be the very lazy one, you know. So that's why a person has a left hand and a right hand, a left arm and a right arm. That's why you have two lobes to your brain. You have a left brain and a right brain. So same in a company. You cannot build a company with the left brain people only or right brain people only. You need the synergy that you get from those two people cooperating. It's the same in a marriage. Imagine that. You have a woman and a man, most probably. And you have to make it work. And it's hard work to make it work. It doesn't happen by itself, you know. So yeah, there's a lot of things that needs to fall in place and get together for a business like this to work. But on the other hand, someone might also tell you that many millionaires and billionaires who have ultimately failed also ultimately rose to the top again fairly quickly again. So that also begs the question, what's that all about, you know?
Now, Dirk, your business was recently acquired by Naspers, I believe for about R1 billion. Can you maybe tell us what is it that made Naspers buy this business, which is obviously not a digital business, because they're very heavy into digital businesses. It's interestingly, obviously, an offline business. It's a real business. So what would you say are the factors that made Naspers buy We Buy Cars?
Because we grew the business organically. What we mean with that is few people, it's an overnight success, 18 years, 20 years in the making, you see. So very often people don't ask themselves, what do I not see? They only ask themselves what I see. And what you see is all too often not the complete picture. So what you're not seeing in We Buy Cars, you don't see the 20 years of organic growth that lies behind us. So this business is not geared in any way. We bought the business cash all the way from the start. No debt whatsoever. If I say not whatsoever, obviously there is a little bit of operational debt which is negligible. But we never got any impetus, cash impetus from outside until very, very recently, 2 years ago, when Fledged Capital bought into our business. Up until then, all the growth was purely organic. So that is exponential growth, where we were growing around about 60% per year on year, non-stop for 18 years from a very low base to where we are now. You know, it's like the story of the rice grains on the chessboard. You know the story. If you double it every time, before the end of the chessboard, you've got more you're knee deep in rice all over India. So it grew organically and it grew exponentially, and it had extremely healthy financials all the way through. It survived the crises, the economic crises of the various times in that 20-year space. And Fledged Capital bought into our business, and they communicated these things to Naspers. They assured Naspers that the money that they bought when they bought into us about 2 years ago, that we didn't even use that money, and that we offered them very grand return on investment. And so Naspers obviously did a due diligence on us, and they commented to us that it's one of the best due diligences that they've ever done. Some of the best, you know. So, but from a strategic point of view, why they bought into us is, you mentioned that we are not so much a digital business, and that's correct. We have we have a lot of bricks and mortar. We have obviously all the expenditure in the cars and in the warehouses and in the people on the ground. We have more than 110 buyers out in the field, each in a car with a driver, with an iPad, with a cell phone, with training, with a central nervous system that they buy, nerve center, we call it nerve center, that they phone for advice and what to do with the next car I'm buying. They have, but you must be careful not to miss the digital side. The digital side is that the people submit their applications online via the web page, and soon we will also be doing online auctions. So So we've got a strong digital arm. We prefer to develop as much as we can in-house, and as much as we have developed outside, we will certainly focus on developing in-house in the future, because we really need the products custom made to our own desire, and to do that you need to have a thorough understanding of how the systems work. And we find that people from outside do not have the detailed knowledge to understand exactly what it is, what we do, and at what scale we do it. Currently we're buying in excess of 4,500. Before the end of the year we'll probably do, God be willing, 7,500 vehicles and more before the end of the year. That is to answer your question, why I think Naspers would be interested in us.
Right.
There could be other reasons.
So Dirk, what would you say is driving you today?
Me personally?
Personally. What is driving you personally?
It's a very difficult question. Once you've started something, you need to complete it, obviously. So for me, at the moment, we buy cars, the business, and the success of the business is very central to my whole life. So I have achieved this financial success that I could ever have dreamed, but then in the same breath, at the same time, you also realize that money can't make you happy. Not really. You know, there has to be more than money. And you start studying people in similar positions to see who's happy and who's not happy, because money doesn't buy you happiness, but it surely goes a long way. So I'm struggling with that question every single day. I would most certainly love to get into philanthropy and to support a few causes, get my hands dirty on that side as well, and so on. But I have a lot of loose ends in terms of dreams. No failing of dreaming a lot of big dreams. And we'll see where it goes. I like to keep my options open and so on. But I would really love to make a difference. I would really love to make a difference in terms of, one thing I'm passionate about, for instance, is fatherless boys. You know, to the concept of fatherhood, for the simple reason that it encapsulates what I see as servant leadership, and I think servant leadership is the most beautiful thing, and I would love to learn. I've already read a little bit about it, and I would love to get to know more about the concept of servant leadership, because it permeates every aspect of business, in my opinion. And I think that business leaders, in my view, are also, in a certain sense, mothers and fathers of businesses. And as much as you are mother or father, it's a different way of looking at leadership. As a form of servanthood. And I feel extremely sorry for people who grow up without parents. So that's something that I'm passionate about as well.
Now, Dirk, let's talk about leadership. And I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
Everybody is racing after and embracing everything that's digital. Everyone, or every millennial person, young person, they all see themselves as the next YouTube star, or the next Steve Jobs, or the next Mark Zuckerberg. They all hope and believe that somehow they will crack the digital game and design some handshaking business to bring parties together, and they will get rich by doing that, you know. And I think that is a big lie. And I think young people should realize that there's a lot more to it. And the concept of servant leadership, that's very, very, very important to me. But on the other hand, the reason why I'm mentioning the digital, why I'm mentioning the icons of the whole digital world, is that if you think that AI is going to take over the world completely and everything's going to be done by machines, etc., it's good, you can think that. But in the process, I want to warn people not to forget that everything is about humans. Everything is about human connection. And there was this guy that made a study. I can't remember the name of the study, but he studied the centennials all over the world, people that grew to become older than 100 years old.
Right.
And he tried to find common denominators in their lifestyle, especially their diet. But the one common denominator that he did find was a sense of community. So to me, that's extremely important. We as businesses, if you force people to work 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're looking for trouble. You have to have an understanding of your internal customer, who is your employee. You have to look after your employees just as much as you're looking after your customers. So my philosophy is one of people before profit. If you look at profit before people, you may do well in the short term, but in the long term, you will never, ever, in my view, build a really good legacy of a business.
Right. And Dirk, what have you learned from your own journey that you consider most important for building future leaders?
I'm not a leadership expert. If I just from my own experience, my own learning, all I can tell you is that I fly for a hobby, aeroplanes. And in aviation, they say you can run out of fuel and you can run out of altitude as long as you never run out of plans. You must have a plan, and your mind must stay ahead of the aeroplane, so you must know where you're going with that thing. And a friend of mine, he said, a curious thing that he always said, he said, if you can't beat them, join them. And if you can't join them, then you must confuse them. Now the question is, what did he mean with confuse them? It means that if everything falls flat around you, if your world implodes and there's no alternatives left, what must you do? The answer is you must keep wiggling and you must keep on moving. They say if you go through hell, don't stop. Keep going. So you have to operate with a plan. No matter what you do, you must always be busy and trying and jiggling and weaving and so I see so many young people out there who are into computer games and all sorts of dreams that's got nothing to do with the reality out there, instead of focusing on acquiring knowledge. And guess what? You don't need a university anymore. They are there for a good purpose. Yes, I'm not against that. All I'm saying is almost any form of education that you want, if you search on the internet, you will find a place where it's for free. Khan Academy, Coursera, lynda.com. There's many of them. If a person wants to educate themselves, they can actually do it if they have a computer and an internet connection, which is not for free.
Now, Dirk, when you speak to aspiring leaders, maybe your employees and maybe even your children, what is it you tell them they should focus on for future-proofing their career, if that is possible?
My father used to send us to, when he sends you to go look for something, maybe a tool that he lost or something, and then you come back, you say, no, I couldn't find it. My father would say, oh, you know why you didn't find it? It's because you didn't look hard enough. Go back and don't come back until you found it. That was what my father said to us. Now, that may be a little bit cruel, but my answer is the same for anybody today. You got to find, you got to search until you find what you're looking for.
And Dirk, when it comes to social media, what is it you tell youngsters? How should they go about using social media to build their own personal brand?
The problem with social media is that it's changing the whole time. And people tend to get involved with something and then they believe that that one thing is everything. My kids watch YouTube and they watch their YouTube stars and they want to become YouTube stars. It's all that's on their mind. you get addicted to social media. So if you live in the world of social media, then all of a sudden that's your life. Nassim Taleb is famous for saying that he prefers to read news that's at least a couple of months or weeks old. He doesn't follow the news because you get addicted to news. You think that's the world, but that's not the world. That's the world as per media, as per modern media. And if you live without that news, you would be amazed that there is life without news. You get all the important news still from your friends. If it's important enough, you will pick up on it.
That's right.
So social media has its place, but people who are engrossed in social media tend to overemphasize the role of social media. It's a tool that is extremely good if it's applied right, but it's not the answer to all your problems. Certainly not. So, but in the same breath, I need to say that you have to. It's a very powerful instrument. You got to know it, and you have to keep abreast of the developments, and you have to have a good grasp on your social media, because if it turns against you, then you're in trouble. So you need to master the basics and be cognizant of what its abilities are.
Now, Dirk, as a mentor to future leaders and many youngsters, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored somebody and that person took your advice to heart?
We've been so busy and so preoccupied that it's only very recently that I started to attempt to be a mentor to some younger people. And what really amazes me is that the one or two people who might have sought me out for mentorship, I often find myself in a position where I think that they know more than I do. And they certainly... Because these people are very well read. These young people today who are fluent in the language of the internet and very comfortable with searches and read a lot. Again, that's the key to many things in life. Read a lot. That's something that I can't accentuate enough. And I try and read as much as I can, although I prefer to listen to books while I drive. These young people, they listen a lot of books, they read a lot of books, they follow all the trends on the internet, they set up their automatic notifications, they are on top of their topics, much more than I was when I was their age. So for me to mentor them is almost impossible in a certain sense. It's a major challenge as a mentor to mentor young people that are mentally as agile as these young people are. They are mentally extremely agile. And I think very often they humor us and when they listen to the stuff that we say because they already know more, because they've read more, and but somehow we still have something to offer them. I don't know exactly what it is, but somehow we still offer them something. And it's beautiful to see how confident they can be in making their decisions, well-informed decisions. And I think these people are going to be... hopefully one day they would say that we stand on the shoulders of giants, because that's the only thing I can think of, that we can only help them so much.
And Dirk, are there any role models of leadership that you would recommend future leaders should study and maybe learn from?
Yeah, there's many. There's so many. It's difficult for me to cite a specific one off the cuff, unprepared like now. But I love Nassim Taleb because he's a contrarian, and he's an extremely well-read person. That's why I love Nassim Taleb. But there are many people that after the interview I'm going to think, oh man, I should have mentioned this or that. I love Mark Schaefer. There's this guy Mark Schaefer. I like Donald Miller. There's so many people. There's this guy that I think you already did an interview with him, Alon Rees.
Yes.
Now, I wanted to go to his entrepreneur school when I was when we started out, but there wasn't time to do that. And also, he accentuated the degree of commitment that they would require of you, and I couldn't see myself doing that. I was put down by that because I was running a business. I wouldn't have time to the sort of commitment that they require. But he wrote a little book. Now, the name of the book fails me now. It's the first little blue book that he wrote, which basically accentuated that you must work on your business and not in your business. So I took this book to Fani of Alon Rees, and I said to Fani, we really got to listen to what this guy is saying. And look where Alon is today. Look where he is today. He's really made a huge success. So that little blue book of Alon Rees also really had an impact on our business, I would say. And he would probably, if he would ever listen to this, he would say, "Why didn't you come? You could have been five times better by now."
Well, so Dirk, tell us, how can our listeners get hold of you, and how should they connect with you?
I always prefer email. I prefer email, dirk@webuycars.co.za.
Right.
And yeah, that's that. Otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Facebook.
And last but not least, Dirk, is there one piece of advice that you would really like to convey to future leaders that they should implement in their own life?
Business leaders. I would say so many things are racing through my head when you ask such an open question. Future leaders. I would say the most important thing for a future leader to realize is the duality of life. The task-oriented person versus the creative person problem that you will have. It's the same problem that you have in your marriage. You have to bring two extremes together. That's one of the ultimate secrets of business in my view, because the one needs the other. If you have a bunch of engineers and accountants, you will tend to on the analytical side too much, maybe. And on the other hand, if you're a very creative business person, then you may well lack on the analytical side and on the execution side. The creative people also, very creative people, always lack on the execution side. It's always like that, and vice versa. So I would say servant leadership is extremely important, and matching personal traits to jobs is very, very important. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. Well, Dirk, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership, and for reminding us that the world and every business needs a father.
That's true, absolutely. Thank you so much, Nick. Appreciate it, man.